Everybody, welcome back to our next panel, Scouting TO, Finding the Perfect Location, generously sponsored by XOTO and City of Toronto and Directors Guild of Canada in Ontario. So scout no more, friends. We've found it. We've locked it in. The perfect panel who's going to show us why the City of Toronto has been deemed one of the best places to live and work as a movie maker. That's on the record, while being the perfect backdrop for your story. And this gem comes without paperwork, so enjoy. A big shout out to our sponsors again. Thanks to the City of Toronto and XOTO for the sponsor. CFF has had the pleasure of working with XOTO schools who create interactive educational opportunities for co-op students. We have to shout out Ryan Gordon, who is not here right now, but he helped produce our podcast that we have online called CFF Cheers and Chats. It's available wherever you get your podcasts. I should make a slide of it this week so I can share it with you all, but it's basically these panels we record and we distribute them so that you can listen and learn at all times, all the events and wonderful conversations that we have going on here. And we also have Iman, who's working with us this year at CFF currently, who's a huge asset to our social media and marketing team. And thank you to our location super pros for joining us today, Dason, Richard, Bobby, and Magali. We've got, I forgot to mention this in the first panel, there's a QR code on every slide that takes you to a spot on our website that has everybody's full bios listed. So if you'd like to deep dive as we go through the conversation, it's available there. And I'll give the floor over to Magali, who was the former Film Sector Development Officer for the City of Toronto and is the current Director of Industry Relations at Cinespace Studios Toronto, Ontario's largest film and television production hub. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Jen, so much. Hello, everyone. Very glad to be here today. Thank you to the Canadian Film Festival for this week. I feel like it's kind of the loudest year I've seen, like online. There's so much about it, so many great films, and obviously a very great panel. So very cool to be here today to talk about the nitty-gritty within production, which is basically scouting and location management. So I'm assuming that we don't need to explain all the terms here today, but I'll make sure that it's like we're not assuming that people understand everything that we're saying. I'm, as Jen said, I manage Cinespace Studios, so we're basically the opposite of a location. We're what you don't need when you don't need a location. So every production needs to shoot somewhere. Most of them use large sound stages, which we offer, and then our shows that we have, and every other show that shoots in the city certainly uses a lot of spaces, whether it's the outdoors, residential areas, the public realm, commercial spaces, the water, a shopping mall, a restaurant, someone's backyard, name it. Like locations is everything that is basically not in the sound stage. So we have the pros for that today. Dason and Richards are very established, popular location managers, both represented at the DGC Ontario, and have worked on some of the largest and most important shows we've had in Toronto for the past many years. Mostly recently, Dason on Reacher, one of the biggest series we've ever had in Ontario at large. I know it's pretty impressive. Gen V, Cross, and Richard. Same thing here, Long Kiss Goodnight, Max Payne, Owning Mahoney, Hemlock Grove. Like some of these shows really made the city what it is now in film and TV, The Boys, and one of my top 3 favorite films of last year, The Apprentice. Yes, so good. And Bobby Donches, my ex-colleague, literally used to call him my work husband, one of these type of friendships at the City of Toronto. So permitting exists everywhere throughout the city, and Bobby is the crux and the leader of all of that. So if you have beef to have with the city, there he is. So let's go through. There's truly so much to talk about all this, and I really want to turn it to you. First and foremost, in a nutshell, what is the best part of your job? Like, let's start with what like rocks about your job.
You go. I'll go. Let's see. Turned on. Hello? Yeah, it works. Best part about a job. I don't know. It's like meeting new people and finding secret new places is the best part. It's for me. It's what really drives me. Makes me wake up in the morning, and just finding secret things.
We'll get to those secret parts. Don't worry.
I think the best part for me is seeing the finished product, and you know, you've got this gut feeling that this location is really, really good, and you're excited for the project, that they're going to go into this spot. It creates a whole scene. It helps with character development. It helps with all that stuff. And then there it is on the screen, and it changes the shape of the movie. So that's what the best part for me is.
And I think for me, I'm more behind the scenes before you see it on the big screen. So I would say I don't seek conflict, but sometimes conflict is my daily. Just working through issues and seeing a pro filming versus anti-filming, and trying to find the meet in the middle where both parties are satisfied and film is able to successfully film. I think that's probably the best part of my job.
So we probably have people in film production at all kinds of levels and all kinds of positions. At what time is an LM brought on to a show, whether it's a big production, an indie production? And I really want to make sure we cover like all types of shows. Like there's mega shows in Toronto, and there's fantastic indie projects, and there's short films, and there's music videos. So all of that counts in this conversation. So at what point on an average show that you would do, I would say on the classic show, are you brought on board by the team?
Yeah, well, as you mentioned, there's lots of different types. But from my experience, it's pretty early on that locations gets either tapped or touched by producers to, you know, find out some of the things that they might be seeing ahead in the script. Oh, hey, it looks like we're going to jump off a cliff. So what kind of cliffs exist in our region? Various things like that. And so I find that I get called, it could be up to a year ahead. They could still be, usually the scripts are done, usually. Sometimes it's not. But it does happen quite early in my experience, that we're either have ideas, vague ideas, stuff that's written, stuff that might get written out, but so that we can get ahead of the process, because a lot of things can hinge upon location availability, what you're planning to do at the location, and many other factors.
Yeah, I agree with Dason. Basically, the producer generally reaches out first and saying, okay, we've got these series of locations or that are in the script. Now, what do I build? What do I shoot on location? You know, how is it going to work? And so oftentimes I find that the location manager gets hired even prior to the production manager being hired. Sometimes you're on shows where the production manager will reach out and say, okay, can you come in and do our show, or we need second team on this series or whatever, so that's fine. But generally speaking, it becomes a creative conversation between the producer and the location manager. And again, this is even before the production designer shows up. The production designer creates the whole look of the show, as you know, and we work very closely with the production designer. We treat them like they're our boss, but we've got all these different levels of bosses. The first one is the producer, there's the production designer, and then there's the production manager, which you want to make sure that, you know, all of your numbers, so costs and fees and everything are in the budget. That's generally what the production manager is trying to do to try to facilitate that.
So Bobby, what needs a permit and when, and how does that work? Like, does everywhere you want to shoot anywhere in the city needs to go through you? Like, what's the sort of breakdown of that?
Yeah, that's probably the top question, and we try to get as much information on our website as possible to answer that question, because that's a starter. So basically anything that is owned by the City of Toronto, so we're looking at pools, parks, rinks, community centers, roads and sidewalks. If you're going to be filming there, or if there's any support for your film, such as like equipment or parking, you're required to have a permit. Where you're not required to have a permit is if you're filming exclusively on private property. So you're at a store or a mall or a residence where you're not parking on the street, you're not impeding the sidewalk, you're completely contained to private property, then you don't need a permit. And also that you're filming between 7 and 11. So anytime you need an exemption, you do need to come to the City of Toronto. If you're going to blow up a car, you need to come to the city of Toronto.
You should tell
and,
someone.
And we always, because there's, part of the reason is notification. So if you're going to blow up a car, we need to know about it, the police need to know about it, and the residents or the businesses in the area that are going to be impacted need to know about it. If you're filming exclusively on private property, that's not necessarily depending on what you're doing. Our favorite word in the office is case by case, because there's no two productions, no two examples that are
That's
exactly
3 words,
the same.
Bobby, just for the future.
Our favorite sentence is case by case. Thank you. So because there's no two alike, so if there's no impact to the surrounding areas and you're on private property, then you don't require a permit.
So what do you say to, there's a lot of indie filmmaking that I think a lot of filmmakers kind of think like, I'll do it on the fly. I'm not at a level where I might need sort of the decorum of a permit or to go through that. Like, I think it's important for people to know that, well, A, that's not good, and B, it's also not that hard to get a permit. Like, it's not such a hoop to go through, and it does not impede on your indie filmmaking just because you're going to go through that.
Yeah, I mean, we have something called a grid permit, which is very helpful for that, where you can film on any sidewalk or road for about an hour and then move on. So you're a smaller unit, you're not taking up any parking, or you're not impacting. You can film anywhere within the city of Toronto with that type of permit. So it's very flexible. You can get that within a day. There's no notification required because you're going to be in multiple areas multiple times. And there's nothing specific. So there are types of permits that you can get where you can film that way, but generally, our timelines in Toronto are the shortest in North America. It's 48 hours. So a lot of revisions, a lot of changes happen in the process, and in our jurisdiction here, you're able to acquire a permit quite quickly, and that'll meet your needs. So we have different types of permits listed online, and they're all for smaller, for larger, for any type of production.
But if I can just say, insurance also needs to be the first thing in place, right? You've got to have insurance in place for the city of Toronto.
Absolutely, yes. Insurance across the board for all types of permits and in events, and it works like that for anything you acquire in the city, but insurance is the first document that we would like to receive, absolutely.
So essentially, like filmmakers, there is no way you do not encounter the film permitting office, like within even probably your first year of making stuff out there in the world. So that's a relationship that should be built properly and then carries on. But for you guys, there's all the other relationships. So when you don't need a city's film permit and you are, say, wanting to shoot in a restaurant or a mall or a school or whatever, you're kind of the fixer, you're the finder of it, and then you're the person who really makes this happen and negotiates how much you're going to pay someone's house and someone's diner to shoot there. So how do you get good at that? How do you start that? Do you do like cold calls all the time to all these places anywhere in Ontario to do this?
Yeah, exactly that. Getting good at it. I came up through the bottom, as you might say, or maybe Drake might say. In that process, you're very front-facing. Like as I worked as a location support personnel and location PA, which meant like if we're filming in a neighborhood and someone's mowing their lawn, it's like, Dason, go fix that. And I'm the go fix that guy. So I got a lot of face time, which was a good experience for me as I came up the ladder to the way to forge relationships is literally just to get out there and call people and meet people and have discussions. And that relationship you put forward your energy. You start getting that back, and people start getting to know you, and reputation really matters, and following through on your promises and their expectations, and setting expectations in terms of if you're going to film in someone's house and there's 80 people that are going to be at that house, like not just saying, oh yeah, we're just a little thing and we're going to come in, which I've had examples of places I've been to where I've either had to restore relationships or recreate trust. Because our industry, I joined this industry in 2008 on the Hulk, and there's just a lot of history, a lot of stories, a lot of people that did it a different way, maybe in the 80s, maybe in the 90s. Richard can talk to that. But not to say I'm cleaning it all up, but I put my best foot forward when I'm connecting with others in order to, just keep the relationship and keep trust going?
Yeah, I think that's what it is. It's all about being the location manager or location team in general. You're the front person for the production. So, you've got to gain that trust. And that's what we work on so hard to make sure that everybody's happy. And like there was one instance where I worked on The Boys, and we were scouting this very expensive mansion. And in the script, it was like this crazy character that's having an orgasm. Like it's like there's all sorts of sex stuff going on inside the house, and then the house explodes, and there's like spinning cars on the lawn and everything. Anyway, so I'm talking to the guy, and he goes, well, I don't mind you coming in here, but as long as you're not going to screw up my lawn or anything like that, I don't want that happening. I said, well, sir, actually, we are going to screw up your lawn. We've got a guy doing donuts in your front lawn, but I will tell you that we've got the money to take care of it. We're going to take care of you. We're going to put you up in a hotel. We're going to take care of your house. It'll be in the contract. Everything will be back as we said, as it was. And that's what had happened, right? But that's a good example of some of the stuff that we have to do. Sometimes the script, asks for some crazy stuff, and you have to somehow come up with a way to pull it off. And I find the best way to do that is just be upfront with everybody. There's no point in trying to hide something. There's no point in trying to cover the storyline. I've been in so many situations where the storyline, suddenly it's like, oh my God, we don't want to be a part of this trashy Trump movie. That was from a bank tower that was, here in Toronto. So it's like, okay, nothing I can do about that. But what I can do when I'm on a bigger budget show is I can take care of the money and make sure people are happy and all that kind of stuff. So that's the key point, is to, we're not out there to burn locations. Unfortunately, the 80s and 90s were notorious for that. And we are still suffering today. So that's why there's all these permits in place. That's why we go through all these protocols, and we try to come off as professional as possible.
We'll talk about like specific locations, because I think a lot of us would be very curious to see like what's the best ones, which ones might be burnt at this point, which ones do you never want to see ever on screen again, it's too used. But before that, like Bobby, like you guys deal with the fallout when something is too intense and the guy didn't know about the donuts and the creature sex or whatever, residents or residential streets are used too often. Like you guys have to manage that so that everybody can keep doing their work. Like that's a big piece, I think, of what your city's film commission does, is to keep the complaints at bay and reiterate the importance of all of this. Like how do you go at that? It must be every week.
Yeah, we do receive quite a few complaints, but the way I explain it is, like, if you have your internet service with Rogers, you don't call them and say, internet's working great, thanks a lot. So we don't receive the compliments, we just receive the complaints. So we understand that. We understand the impacts that come with film. I would say that 95% is just forwarding their complaint and talking with them and showing them the website about, film is allowed to do this. Here's the bylaw. Here's the guideline. Here's how it's supposed to be done. And just talking through it. A lot of people just want to vent about they lost their parking spot, or there's, filming went till 2 a.m. I mean, that's a big one for us is the late night, and I understand that completely. We've had instances where a new parent had called me and to complain about a film that wanted to film outside his house till 4 a.m. and they have a newborn baby whose bedroom is right in front of the house. His wife hasn't slept in weeks, and so I've been there. I completely understand it, and I agreed that this may not be a great situation for the individuals and the residents, and as well as production. So part of my job is to kind of find a meet in the middle and bring in production and kind of work something out. And what happened is they filmed 4 doors down, and everyone was kind of satisfied. So it's the meet in the middle. It's the talking to people, explaining the processes, explaining the guidelines. And then, film isn't like construction where they're going to tear up the road and there's a huge hole and you cannot use it. Film is more flexible. So what times do you need to use it? What do you have a delivery? Are you having a party? We can keep this clear. So there's always some sort of accommodation that can take place. So we work closely with location managers and production and just trying to find a meet in the middle. So, I mean, we can't stop the complaints. They're going to continue to come in, but we talk with them. A lot of times it's venting and just explaining the processes and what we can do for them.
So what are the coolest spots? Like, what have you guys like found on your own? Like, what's your current, like, I guess maybe some of them are, you know, secrets. I don't know if there's a secret code of location managers, or you may or may not tell each other the new best spot, but tell us about Toronto for you. Like, what is the offer of locations that is so awesome or not?
The first rule of the location manager club is don't talk about the location manager club. But no, kidding aside, there are a lot of cool spots. I mean, it's cool to like, I'm a location scout nerd, so I like nerd out about rooftops and, you know, basements. Things that, you know, my wife's like, oh God. It's like, yeah, I was in this basement of this like 18th century like warehouse and it was all, and she's like, who cares? But, you know, that's what I find cool. I'm trying to think. I was in a distillery district place just recently I was scouting. They're going to maybe tear it down, but it was like 7 stories and empty in the middle, and it was a complete death trap, and there was wood with water on it that must have been pouring on it for like 100 years, and I was stepping on it, and I said, I'm going to die today. And I've said that a few times on my scouts. There's been places I've been where I'm like, I'm going to die today, and I don't want to anymore because I have kids now, but that thrill factor, I don't know, I'm addicted to that feeling of like, no one's supposed to be here. This is the first time someone's been here in a while. I'm going to probably bring a whole film crew here, which also requires a lot more thinking about things. But yeah, that.
Good you didn't die. Your wife got to hear another great story that day. She's like, oh.
She didn't want to hear it that day.
Yeah, the city of Toronto really does have some amazing spots. And I think after you have been doing it for so many years, the hidden gems are sort of very far and few between. So if you're thinking that you're going to find some hidden gem, likely it's been shot before. I hate to say it, but that's a reality. But that doesn't mean that you can't be excited about it. That doesn't mean that this location that maybe was shot, you know, a couple of months ago can't be used in your show and used in a different way. And just, you know, come up with some really great stuff. Because there are some great locations, like on The Apprentice, we saw some fantastic spots that like 522 University, that's an office tower basically, but it's got these old offices in there that are from the 80s, and it hasn't been touched, and suddenly, you know, everybody, rightfully so, wants to go there, and that's totally great. But that is something that, you know, we used for like Trump's office, and we used it for a couple of other boardroom meetings and stuff like that. You know, there was some difficult stuff like New York City Hall in that movie. So we ended up going to a church. We went to the Metropolitan United Church on Simpson Avenue, and we created their, you know, main hall as the city hall where they were having the hearing. That was the hearing. So it's like just being creative enough to, open enough that, hey, this might work as this. One of the craziest things I think I did was, I was thinking about it, American Gods. The episode was the gods were going to go see their dead colleague at a motel, and it was Central America. And we're like, oh my God, what are we going to do? So anyway, what did we do? We went to Mary Retreat up in Vaughan. We created the exterior of that as the motel, and then we created the interior as this United Church. It had a circular reception area, and we put the body in there, took away the, you know, crosses and all that kind of stuff, and suddenly that was the motel reception. So it's just a matter of, again, being open enough to try to create something that maybe you wouldn't think fits in the box, and then suddenly it works.
I would say, because I used to work on Toronto Island, and Toronto Island is a hidden gem for the city of Toronto. So I often remember, just regular picnic sites would be an amazing backdrop for film. And I think just a lot of people just haven't been to Toronto Island, and I don't know how deeply you would scout it, but I did see it in a show recently, and I remember watching it. I mean, it's only 20 seconds long, these scenes, but I remember that's Toronto Island. That's awesome that they found that. But there's a ton on Toronto Island that's a little hidden gem.
There's all these spots, like I'm a reader of Blog.to. I'm very high end myself, thank you. I don't know for you. And there's often these lists, like in the Toronto Star, like a lot of websites, like Nar City, and it's always like the most used spots in Toronto, and it's always like the Lakeview, Casa Loma, the George Street Diner. Like there's a few kind of like classic examples, and I wonder if for you guys it's kind of like, oh yeah, of course they're very cinematic, but like there's no way we're going to use them anymore. Like it's way too much. Are there places that to you are burned, not necessarily because like the residents turned on them, but you guys would think like that's at this point not transformable the way you were saying, like you can make it different?
Yeah, I think Casa Loma has got some real logistical issues right now with the new ownership. It's very expensive. They don't like to close. So but having said that, the tunnels are amazing. Like there's some things that you're just not going to find anywhere else. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, to your point, though, that things have been, I wouldn't say overshot, but very, very well used, very well subscribed to. I think it speaks to the some of the universality of some of our locations and just the appeal. And sometimes as a scout and presenting, or as a manager presenting pictures to a director who says not from Toronto, you're just like, this one again. But they love it. And they see from the bones, because to Richard's point, the creativity you have to bring to a location, that's the other part that's amazing, where I remember, especially when I was coming up, seeing, it's basically how I learned how to do this job, but seeing a room in, let's say, there's one that we used, I think it was on Flashpoint. It was just the regular hall in a apartment building, and it had some columns, and the designer used it to make it a bank. And I was like, oh, and then all of a sudden this place was a bank. It had high ceilings, it looked rich, and it was such a surprise to see that come about. And that was the first moment where I said, oh, I could do that. And it's not even about like right there, that window with the view. It's like you can turn that into a penthouse. You frame it the right way, put the right finishing and blinds and stuff. So it's about that level of creativity. And many directors who come to our city and who live in the city and filmmakers themselves, they have that, and you just have to pair yourself with that and work in that mode. So just speaking to the location part, yeah, they just work in some ways, in a lot of ways.
So Toronto is both we like to use the terms like world class. We're getting bigger by the week, it feels. So much construction. It's also like as great as it is and as cinematically forward as we are for the industry, it's also like a gridlock now. It is a painful city to get through as much as we all love it. How many times am I going to say as much as we love it, though? Like, love it, love it, love it, love it. Huge pain. But it is, there's huge pain points to just going around the city as a normal citizen, and then you get massive film units that want to go in neighborhoods, but also like downtown, which downtown has always been one of the biggest selling points for getting shows to come here. Is the classic, like Toronto can be any city in North America if you shoot it a certain way. So if you tout that's like on your big pamphlet of why you should come here, and then it's a huge pain to get to that exact look, how do you all in your respective jobs like maneuver the very tense downtown core that we now have?
Okay. Yeah, I think road closures are very difficult, if not basically impossible. So I think if you have any kind of street scene, like on The Apprentice, we had this scene where it was just a driving sequence. But the director really wanted the road completely locked up, and so I had to convince him that it would be intermittent traffic control, which is ITC, and as per the City of Toronto, it's 2 to 3 minutes, and you've got pay duties and all that. So that's how we get around kind of like being able to pull off stuff like that, where it's a long sequence. He's in a car, they're talking, they can see outside, they need to clear the street. Clearing the street is fine, but it's the actual closure of the street that's a big problem, and that will be between the locations department and your AD department that will make sure that that's facilitated properly.
I don't know what you're talking about. There's no construction downtown. But
it's a case by case, depending on the street.
Case by case.
2 words.
Yeah, there's ways around it from the city's side of things. Like if you need a lane closure to park support vehicles, and there's usually a lane already taken up from construction, that could work. Road closures, weekends only in the core. Can we move it over to another side street? A lot of conversations I have with these two specifically. You want to film right beside a huge construction site that's closed down. So what's the plan? And like you said, you kind of work it out, and we work it out together with ITCs, with a road closure on a weekend, or we have some tools that we can use to move things around and cheat some scenes. But yeah, it is difficult with the amount of construction, but it's still doable.
The one thing I'll say to just your point about selling our city and then having, it maybe being a little less than what we were expecting. I find there are, because there's less parking lots in the city, there's less, everything's disappearing that the film industry used to rely upon. And I maybe Bobby, you can speak to this, but I know that there's some initiatives in place to, say, for example, allow us to plug into city power. Doing things, I find that, especially as I've seen in the industry, we're getting a little more mature in terms of it's less of a surprise to certain neighborhoods to be like, oh, what's this, filming? And then, like Taz and Tasmanian Devil, you just spin, and then you're gone and everything's a mess. Having more infrastructure in place for our industry, as ad hoc as it is, as all over the place, I think that's the way where we're going to be able to just smooth the surface of our interactions with everybody, because then it's in certain neighborhoods there's policies and people in place that are they just know what's going on, and whenever you're filming in places like that, there's this oh, okay, this is not weird and abnormal and unusual and everything. You can't figure out what's going to happen, because there's so many commonalities to what we do, so many things that are just rote, and to that point, I feel like further investment into being able to be on the receiving end of that is only going to help that gridlock.
Yeah, because what we're all selling includes the look of the city, and it's such a city of neighborhoods, and it's so different. If you go Queen East, like I live in Leslieville, and it's very popular for filming that type of look, and same with Queen West, and Hyde Park is very different. So, and the downtown core obviously is kind of our crown jewel, but it becomes kind of as much a selling point as your infrastructure, your talent, and this. It's really part of the package, and you guys are the ones unlocking that, so you're the ones who have to find sort of the keys to that. I assume you're unconsciously trained, like you said, like you're a locations nerd. Your words, not mine. Are you both and Bobby too, to a certain extent, is your brain kind of constantly, whether you're traveling on your own time, wherever you are, completely outside of here, kind of always have this chip of, oh, we could do this here, or oh, wouldn't that be nice to bring? Yes.
Yes,
I can imagine.
Yeah, totally. It's well, I had my first child when I was 7 years ago, and I remember very distinctly. It was around the time when I could tell, my brain's forever changed. try to drive him. I had to drive him to sleep because he wouldn't sleep. And I'd be like scouting. I'm like, I'm not working. I'm on, paternity leave. I'm just driving around, and I'd be writing stuff down. I'd be like, oh wait, I'm scouting again. So yeah, it's for me every second of every day. It's nonstop.
Yeah, that's true. There's sometimes you go to certain events or something, and you're like, oh my God, this room is fantastic, and you're at a wake, and it's like you're not supposed to be paying attention. It's just like, anyway, or it just happens, and yeah, it's very true.
Can't turn it off.
No, can't turn it off. Yeah.
Okay, so what is the? No, actually, Bobby, go for it.
Yeah,
too.
just on the with the kids theme, just riding bikes. I've got my 2 kids behind me, and I'm looking at the street, saying, "This is so wide. You can fit 2 units. You can fit a unit on this side, a unit on this side." And I'm just like, nerding out a little bit on streetscape, and right, I have to pay attention to the kids. So always thinking about it.
A bit kind of like niche, like techie question, but we've started to see, like, not to use AI in such a like generic terms and like boring fake conversation around it, but specific to your jobs, like there's now these softwares that seem to lead to scouting basically like virtually. So to be able to show a lot of probably major locations, not like the corner of a mall in Etobicoke, probably more like the dunes of Jordan. So like things like that. But how do you see that? And is this something you're starting at the back of your head to be like, yeah, there's part of my job that might become way more like on a computer and showing and researching that way and packaging looks that way than it is now?
Well, yeah, Google Maps with Google View, Street View is like fantastic because it saves you a lot of time. You can get down there and go, okay, what about this building? And then even if you're not sure about that building, you can look at it and then maybe send somebody out to, verify it. So yeah, definitely there's stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when COVID hit, the production I was on, we ended up using virtual because our director couldn't come from LA. So we had what was it? There's a guy I had as an assistant, and he had a rig that he could do up, and everyone puts on VR goggles, and we scout it virtually. Obviously, you can do that too with your iPhone and just bring them along. But there's massive opportunity for that to keep as the technology grows. Yeah.
Yeah, and like we talk a lot about Toronto, but the regions around Toronto have been hugely helpful in offering other looks. Like we look at A Handmaid's Tale, obviously one of our most iconic show, all shot in studios, at our studio, but a lot at City Hall outside. Like if you watch a show in the subway stations, but also in Cambridge. And that's really not a look we can offer a show in the city. So I'm assuming for you guys it's a huge benefit that in a radius of 2 hours, there's all these other cities that have kind of really embraced film to come their way.
Yeah, definitely. It's been great, especially to have the jurisdictions be able to take the lead almost of the city of Toronto in terms of permitting and understanding the economic development boost filming can have. But that's also one of the things where we can kind of do Cambridge. There are parts of Toronto that are right on the environs that are still, viable, and it's fun to flip them when it's like, we can make like, what is the one? Mimico? We use Mimico a lot to get a small town look sometimes.
Give it up for Mimico. Woo! How about you?
Yeah. Sorry, what?
No, just like the nature of the work kind of changes the more you can do online. And that's not just you driving around looking at stuff necessarily.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I was mentioning Google Maps and City View, but it's so true about the different jurisdictions and that, when people come here, it's not just the city of Toronto. There's like our GTA has so much to offer and with different looks and all that stuff. So I think that's really important for sure to be able to offer that. And it starts at Ontario Creates, which is the film library. All of the locations that have been downloaded are generally there. It'd be very rare to find something that isn't there. Sometimes you need a very specific house, then you'll send somebody out to start knocking at doors or, giving flyers out or something like that. But yeah, Ontario Crates is always a very good place to start.
What's, I don't know if that's too precise and if you can come up with this like this, but what's the favorite location that you feel like you're the guy who brought film to that? Like it's your spot and you still tell people it's my spot. You're like, too many, I don't know.
Wow.
I have one.
Oh, do you? Okay, there you go.
I have one, and I was thinking about it the other day because I'm not a boastful guy, to my detriment.
Let's do it.
To my detriment. But there was a wastewater plant that I know I brought online because it took a lot of meetings, and it was with the region. It was a regional plant, which I believe most are, and yeah, they'd never had film within them. They'd never encountered it. And it was cool to onboard it. Like it was essentially like bringing a new place into filming. And I know they've had filming again in the since us, and people have come to me and be like, "Hey, you opened this one up. What's it? What do we do?" And now they're just like regular. It's like they forgot all about me. They're like, "Yeah, whatever. We take film every day." And it's like, but that was one. It was out in Peel region. And it was a really cool plant.
Richard, then, if not that, like, what's your coolest location, like, favorite project you worked on because of that location?
Well, speaking of Canadian TV, I was thinking about, like, some of my proudest moments. And believe it or not, Twitch City was a tiny little Canadian off-the-beaten-path show. And, I had pitched this gas station because the idea was the main character was stuck in his apartment. He never wanted to go out, and at the very last episode he walks out, and the whole thing took place in Kensington Market. So we shot in Kensington Market. It was just incredible. So which you can't really I don't know how easy that is now, but anyway, all I'm trying to say is occasionally you get these proud moments where it's like that gas station right by the highway where the character walks out to see his girlfriend. It's a big epiphany. He didn't come out of his house. He's just like, now he's like in the middle of nowhere. And it just, it set the story up well. And it was just something that, you're kind of proud of, right? You just sit there and go, yeah, that worked well. It was a good gag or whatever, part of the story.
I have a couple more before I turn to you all if you have questions for the panelists. But who is being an LM for? Like if anyone's like maybe considering doing this.
What a question.
Yeah, that is, the LM job is you're not just working for the production. You are working for the City of Toronto, you're working for the public, and you're working for the location that either your show is filming at. And the last thing you want is if you get the sense that your, show is maybe a little risky or whatever, or there's some crew members that might do some bad things or whatever, you've got to do whatever it takes to protect the location and to make sure that everybody leaves on good terms. And so that's the biggest thing about being a location manager. So it's not really just a film job. It's, trying to negotiate all of this different stuff.
Yeah, and just to add to that, you're also working, I'm not a location manager, but you're also working for yourself and your name, because it's your location. Yeah. And your name's on the notification letter, your name is with our office, so if there's a problem and we reach out to you. It's your location. So you will be working on this show for another 3 more months, and then you will work on another show. So you're not just working for production houses, you're working for yourself as well.
You're working for your reputation.
Yeah, reputation is key. And I was taught this, it might have been by you, Richard, but that idea that, not to disparage anyone coming to our fair city to film, but some people are just visitors. I mean, film itself is a visitor to neighborhoods, but sometimes the filmmaker's vested interests might not be in the best interest of our city or the neighborhood or of the street, whatever it could be. But that negotiation is, if you're asking who the location management job is for, middle children, people that are used to negotiating between multiple stakeholders at all points in times and trying to serve everybody as best as they possibly could. Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, anybody can do it though. Anybody can learn it, but I find the people that are most even-keeled and maybe the most excel at it the most, yeah, they've got something where they can, empathy and emotional intelligence and intuition, right? That little triangle.
Very well said. We'll turn to the audience if there's questions. Yes, at the back. Yep.
My question is, how do you work with organizations like MTHA or all the different I guess they're sub or municipal organizations that control certain properties, and why is it so challenging?
You said MTHA?
Yeah.
What's that one?
Like Metro Toronto Housing Authority or
Yeah,
they
that's,
cover these very niche areas because these areas have very specific looks that are not from our time. They're not very modern anymore. They're doing something very urban, but there's a lot. It seems like a lot of politics
there is.
on why who can what and what they want to read the entire script. It's a lot. Why?
Yeah, well, I was thinking about this because in that it's the same lane as having developed becoming a more mature industry. With that comes a lot of organizational, I wouldn't call it bloat, but broadness, and certain organizations just have a pathway. They have a channel that you've got to ride through. It can make it faster sometimes, but it also reinforces the edges where you can't come in at a different angle anymore. You can't. For example, the place that I opened up, the wastewater treatment facility, that was, a creative, improvisational thing where they had no policies on filming. No one was in charge. It's who even is going to manage this? But when it comes to more mature organizations like Metro Toronto, even Infrastructure Ontario, you got to go through the channels. You're not gonna flip the script and get in any other way than the way they prescribed. That's the doorway. At least that's my take.
So having the locations that I don't think how this is making myself having the locations manager probably would help to kind of facilitate that relationship.
Very much so.
I tried to shoot in the area, and everything was fine. They read the script, everything was cool, and then within a few days prior to our shoot, they're like, "Hey, we changed our mind. The image of what you're shooting, we don't want that represented in the neighborhood." I'm just like,
right. Yeah, that is the big selling point from some of our jobs is having the history with some of these these organizations, some relationship, trust, reputation, all those things go into play and just some foresight to getting ahead of situations like that because of that history, that understanding of, hey, these guys are a little sensitive about this thing. Maybe we're going to approach it in this manner. So, I'm sure you can talk to that as well.
Yeah, I think that's getting back to, script and content, and sometimes that's very difficult to get turned around. I worked on this, John Wayne Gacy show, and we wanted to shoot on a government bridge, and literally the government turned us down because they were worried that it was associated with John Wayne Gacy. Even though we were showing the bridge is somewhere in the States and all that stuff, it didn't matter. And so I think, it does get very tricky and a fine line in how you explain, how you're portraying the location. The location is often very sensitive about how they are worried about how they're going to be seen. And most of the time, I can say, oh, don't worry, this is going to take place somewhere else. It's fine, or it's fictitious, or we're going to cover up this sign, or nobody's going to recognize it. There's things like that you're trained and is the truth. And so, but having a location manager that's got some kind of experience that can help facilitate that will be able to, help you for sure. Because I know, housing complex, they're sensitive. They don't want to be shown as, drug dealers or whatever it is that you're doing there, right? So, anyway.
Mimico Man.
Because I've worked as one, and it can be a very thankless job at times, could you talk about the role of location support personnel on film sets?
Yeah, your teams.
Yeah, for sure. Having been one, it's a very flexible role, but I think the entire location department is a flexible role. And sometimes I say it's the most thankless department, kind of like Bobby's department, but we just don't get the thanks. But we do. And
Thank you.
I don't need it, but so thank you. But yeah, it's just a flexible role. It's a flexible role, and it's a crucial role, and it's often underlooked and overlooked. So yeah.
Absolutely. Location support personnel, like your reputation starts with your entire department. And I think so many times when somebody just gets into the industry and they're working as a location support personnel, they think that it's just like, oh, well, I'm just sitting here watching these cones and it doesn't really matter and blah, blah, blah. But you know what? It does matter, because when things go wrong, it goes right to the top. And so we just appreciate it so much when you've got somebody that knows what they're doing and they're there to do the job and make it all happen. It's very important.
Yeah, and I can add to that. So getting ahead of problems is the key, because you don't, and it goes right to the top. And then I have a phone call in the morning. But when we don't get those phone calls, or we get emails with pictures to say, here's our setup, here's what we thought about, here's what we got ahead of, we really appreciate that. And that's a lot of the crews, if not all of them. They're on top of things and they have the experience to do that. So we're very thankful. Thank you again, Dason. Thank you.
Yes?
Yeah, I just had a question about bystanders and maybe like how to grid permit in High Park and there's people in the background clearing them and how that works. Can they be in the shot? Public place?
Okay, so I should mention grid permits do not include parks. So you would need a parks permit that is very specific, because that's a specific location. And there could be a booking already, so there's some conflict checking that goes into place. But as far as using a grid permit on the street, I mean, that would be part of the scene. Or if you have a lockdown, like we said, with ITCs or a road closure, you can control it in that way. Otherwise, it is if it's a smaller project. But if it is a parks project that you're looking at and you want to control, that's something that you would approach our office with ahead of time, so that you can have signage up so that people around are aware, and then maybe book at the site next to the location that you are, so that it's a little bit more controllable. So there's a little bit of tools in there.
So like if you would want people in the background, like you're happy those people, is that okay for those people to be filmed?
Yep, there's releases that you can offer, and obviously with the signage, some of the signage is, you may be involved in the shoot, and if you're not okay with that, please approach and just speaking to people, and a lot of times a lot of people are wanting that, so that'll work out.
Sandwich board.
Yeah, you have like a sandwich board that either is some kind of general,
Yeah, you've seen them around downtown, I'm sure. They're all over the place for base camp and stuff like that.
So if people see it, it's their problem if they end up in her shot, kind of thing.
Basically.
Like she's good to use it.
Check with your legal.
She is fine. We love your film. It's great. Yes.
Sort of related to what Dason said earlier about when you're in locations that you felt like, you might die at any second, or die that day. If you find a location you really like that's say to be demolished or it's in a bad state, do you have to then consult with health and safety inspectors, or how does that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually in the midst of negotiating something like that right now, and yeah, you're generally going to have to do your due diligence, either remediation specialist, structural engineer, legal or insurance assessments, but it's on you, especially if you're going to, depending on what your agreement is going to be with whoever owns it. But our department tends to be the leader, or at least the lead for safety. So, yeah, that's generally what we do. I mean, Richard, you've done a lot of crazy shoots.
Yeah, that's so true. It's basically inspections and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know, maybe if you're on a show that doesn't have that kind of budget, but you need to try to make sure that safety is mitigated. Like we work with, we've got to answer to unions and ACTRA members and all kinds of stuff. So there's all these different protocols. I don't know how it would be for independent, but I would just urge you to, like, if you're in an unsafe area, I think it's very important to address that with the crew and, with everybody involved. Usually the first AD will kind of address, like, have a safety meeting at the beginning of each shoot day. And so we will download what's been said and what's needed, and the first AD will be able to execute that.
Before we wrap, I know there was a few more questions. You may be able to corner these busy guys after. I don't know. It's up to you guys. Couple things from me. Is there a location you've yet to be able to get into that we can wish upon you? Is there like those unattainable spots? All attainable.
Queen's Park Circle.
Yes, Queen's Park Circle. I've heard many times it's a pain. Call Deggy. Let's do it. Dason.
Inside Queen's Park. It's
not owned by the city of Toronto.
Yes. Okay. Inside Queen's Park.
I mean, it's probably attainable and fine. It's just, I haven't found the project that wants to go there, has the money, and is willing to go through the hoops. But the CN Tower, like, come on.
Yeah.
Like, I want to film the CN Tower.
Yes. Like at the top inside.
Yeah.
Like looking down.
I remember talking to them once and they laughed at me because I didn't have enough money. But anyway, CN Tower is my, I want to go there and shoot there. Find something that shoots there.
We will.
Yeah, a filmmaker from Toronto that wants to shoot Toronto for Toronto.
Yeah, come on. Yeah, I agree. Wonder if you can do that. Well, there's films all week, and I guess we invite you to pay attention to where those scenes occur. I think it really is kind of fun to start thinking about that more and more as you watch stuff. Thank you so much, Bobby, Richard, and Dason for today, and let's keep the conversations going.
Thank you so much to this wonderful location sensation of a panel. And thank you again to our sponsors, DGC Ontario, who represent these incredible locations managers, and XOTO in the City of Toronto for the support for this conversation and conversations just like this, as well as their support for the festival. So thank you.